everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Gaby U Show. I am your host, Gaby U. So today I have an amazing guest, Nenia Corcoran. And before we go into our discussion today, let me tell you some things about her. Nenia Corcoran lives in Upper Valley of New Hampshire with her family and two chocolate labs. She holds an MFA in creative writing and an MA in English literature, both from Southern New Hampshire University. She is a certified police officer with a decade of experience and training. She is also a domestic violence and sexual assault survivor. Nenia writes young adult novels to empower her readers to recognize the signs of toxic relationships to avoid victims of abuse. And here is Nenia Corcoran. Nenia Corcoran, welcome to the Gaby U Show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here today. And so I want to start out with some icebreaker questions that I call them icebreaker questions before we go into fully in our discussions. So the first question I want to ask you, Nenia, is what is your favorite food?
Chocolate.
Oh,
Anything chocolate.
Is that why you have dogs that are chocolate in college?
Yes, you can't have enough chocolate. Even my dogs have to be made out of chocolate. I am just a chocoholic.
Oh my goodness. So is it a particular chocolate, dark chocolates, or just anyone, anything chocolate?
I mean, I prefer milk chocolate, but
Okay.
if there is no milk chocolate, I will not be picky.
Okay, all right. Ooh, that's a real chocolate lover. Okay, awesome. So what would you say is your favorite quotes?
So my favorite quote is probably from Ernest Hemingway. He said that there's nothing to writing, you just sit down at the typewriter and bleed. And I think that's probably how I
Oh,
feel when I'm writing, only I'm
oh,
not doing it at a typewriter.
oh, yeah, we use the computer. Yeah, or use your, write. I actually learned how to type with a typewriter.
I
Yeah.
have a typewriter that I keep
Oh,
on display, but I don't don't
oh,
write my novel on it.
okay. So you can do a photo shoot with it, like you're a writer, you have your typewriter.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a good quote. Awesome. All right. So I want you, Nina, to share with me the key things that you feel has shaped you to be this woman you are today. I want you to share with me, your struggles, your victories. It could be from your health, business, faith, career. I want you to just go all the way in and just kind of share with us today.
Sure. So probably my biggest struggle is the fact that I was in a 15-year-long toxic relationship. I met the man that I would later marry when we were just 11 years old. And so we grew up together, and our relationship was always toxic, but I didn't know it because no one had ever taught me what to look for in a toxic relationship. And so often we forget that toxic relationships can be platonic, they can be with your parents, they can be with a boss, they don't have you to. So I spent a lot of time in this toxic relationship as friends before I even got to the romantic part. And then I was in the romantic toxic relationship, and then I married him. So 15 years later, and 3 years of being a police officer. And it took me that long to realize that I was in a toxic relationship and that I was in an abusive relationship. And um, that shaped who I was for a really long time because my self esteem and my self confidence were so low because of the things that he would tell me and the things that he would say. And so, since I met him when I was in that vulnerable age of young adulthood where you're starting to develop who you are, I never really got to develop who I was without him. So it wasn't until I was in my mid 20s that I really got to figure out who I was. And my career kind of shaped that. I was a female police officer in a very male dominated environment. I was the only female in all of my departments. And so at first, when I was trying to figure out who I was kind of putting on display of masculinity because I already was ashamed of the fact that I had been a victim. So I felt like I had to be tougher than I felt and, put on this act of that I was this, hardcore badass, so to speak. And that never really felt right, but it felt like what I had to do to protect myself. And it isn't until I met the man that I am now married to in a very healthy relationship where I felt like I could start to let my guard down and really like figure out who I was and enjoy the things that I wanted to enjoy just because of who I am. And I got to explore my femininity a little bit, and I got to be open about the things that I really didn't like about who I was pretending to be. And so, now that I'm in a safe environment and get to explore that, it took me until my late 20s, early 30s to figure out who I am and to be able to follow my passions and be able to write and do all of those things that I love.
Wow. Yeah, so it's kind of looked like, some of all those things that happened to you all those years, it's brought you, it was painful, of course, but now, you switch it around and learn from it and, kind of have the blessing too of having to be in a healthy relationship and just open more doors. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I
Mm.
definitely, I value the relationship that I have now so much more because I know what it's like on the other side
Mm.
and all of the little things that my husband does for me that, might be easily taken for granted. I really notice and appreciate so much more because they're just things that I never experienced before, those little, like people talk about the love language, the little
Mhm.
things that people do to show each other that they love each other. I never had, and I didn't know I didn't have them. And so now that I do, I appreciate everything. I take, every moment for what it is and try to really hold on to it and try not to take anything for granted.
Yes. See, they said when life gives us lemons, we turn it into lemonade. I always like sweet lemonade because just lemonade is sour. And this is what you've done, and not, continue having that victim mentality. And, you know, I think also, having that person that it wasn't toxic because it's unfortunate. A lot of people they move from one toxic to another toxic because they are
Yeah,
seeking for stuff. But you kind of got to that place where it's kind of stopped there, and that helped a lot to help you heal from all those years. And that is one thing that in life where I always say that where there is life there is hope, and not a lot of people will have that. um, I don't know if I'll say luck or opportunity to have met that. It might take them a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of toxic to now finally find a healthy one, and they keep suffering. And it's kind of also connecting with who are you connecting with around you. So that's why the one thing I want to ask you from that is that what would you feel like your friendships were in those times you were in that kind of toxic relationship? Do you think you had friends that could have told you, or parents, or you know?
well, I think that a lot of my friends, because at the time we shared a lot of friends because we had grown up together. So a lot of his friends were my friends and my friends were his friends, kind of thing. That I think they kind of enabled it. They, played into the emotional stuff that was going on. Like they laughed because they thought it was a joke and like all of these things. So it was very much when I broke free of him, I actually broke free of a lot of those friends as well because I didn't think those were healthy relationships for me to have. And they certainly didn't see the bad side of him, or else maybe they would have said something. So I really feel like I cleansed my life afterwards of a lot of toxic people. And maybe people that didn't, their intentions weren't to be toxic, but they enabled the toxic
Yes.
relationship. And then I had a lot of newer friends from my police department that I think felt like they couldn't say anything because of that weird dynamic between being the female police officer and the male police officers, and like where's that line of friendship and work and all of that stuff. So I think there was a lot at play there, and so I had to do some purging of some old friends, and my new friends, I think some of my relationships got stronger because I felt like I could go to them and ask for help.
Yes, that is so, so very important, because this is what a lot of people face. I mean, personally, I've gone through that, where you'd be like, oh, but I've known this person for all these years. But the question is, are they helping you to be a better person? And that is one thing, like everybody has a season. Okay, there is sometimes this the season for you, and now it's like, okay, the season is done, and we need to move on to get new relationships or new friends or new things, because sometimes, and that also affects growth, because some of the times people you say you've known for hundreds of years, and you are trying to get to do something, they might not understand what you're trying to do or what you're going through. So I know it's not easy sometimes, like, oh, I've known her since, but this is for your own self, for your own mental health, for your own peace of mind. Sometimes it just has to be done. And,
it really does. And you touched on it there, that sometimes it's so hard to admit that old friends are not good for you anymore. And it doesn't mean that the friendship was bad the whole time, but there are just some times that you grow apart, and it's like you said, the season is over and you have to move on. And that doesn't mean that you have to have a falling out. You can just grow apart and kind of casually, and that's okay.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's not just, I mean, some people, of course, you need to cut away, but there are some you just, you call them when Christmas, New Year, holidays, you still check on them, but not as before.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
That's okay.
And that's okay. They just have to. It's a lot of this thing too is mindset. It's hard, but it's a process. That's, you have to just be ready to go. Like, where do I want my life to be?
Absolutely. And sometimes those old friends that you had just don't match up with where you're going, and so
that's right. Gotta go, gotta move.
Exactly. You can't drag people with you there. That's not gonna work.
No. Because that's the thing too. Also, when you say you want to change people, you can't. You can't. You can change yourself. Okay, so through you changing, they will change when they're ready, and you gotta just do your own thing and keep going. So.
And that's the problem with abusive relationships a lot of times too, is we feel like we might be able to change them, so we hold on a lot longer than we ever should.
That's right.
In hopes that you can make some sort of change, when really you just have to take care of you.
Yes, that's right. Wow. So what would you say that you are most proud of a woman today?
I think that I am most proud of the fact that I was able to forgive myself for everything that I blamed myself for coming out of my abusive relationship. I really struggled at first with that kind of mentality of, I should have seen this, I should have known better. I really struggled with, how can I continue to be a police officer if I missed all of this in my own life? How can I take care of other people if I couldn't take care of myself. Like I really struggled with that kind of failure victim mentality. And it took a long time to recover from that. And it wasn't easy. It took a lot of reflection and really focusing on myself and trying to remember that it wasn't my fault and I didn't put myself in this position. Like, he's the one at fault. And that was really what I had to keep reminding myself of. And so I was able to kind of build myself back up to the place where I felt like I could be effective doing my job and I could be effective as a woman and all of those things. I really had to work at that. And there were days where I didn't think that I would ever get to that point again, that I would ever feel confident in myself or that I would ever trust myself again. And it did take time, but I'm there now and I'm proud of that.
Yes. Wow, that is powerful. Yeah. Because that's for me, I had that kind of feeling of, that failure when I struggled with a lot of GI symptoms for almost 10 years, and I felt like my doctors weren't knowing what was wrong with me. I felt I was healthy, but I knew there was something wrong, but nobody's listening. And, also felt really bad because I'm like, okay, I'm a nurse practitioner and I can't figure out how to help myself. Why? And I get that thing of failure, like I can't do it. Well, how am I going to help people? I can't help myself here.
Exactly.
But over time, just start, mindset. Like, okay, what are the things I have to do? Start seeking for other alternatives of what can I do, and come to that place. Like, what, this happened. It's one of those things in life. You don't have to be perfect, but you just need to keep moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. So what are some of the encouraging words you want to give our listeners today? Listening.
So the encouraging words that I would want to say are, if you are in a situation that is toxic or you aren't getting the support and the love that you deserve and need, then you need to take care of yourself and you need to move towards making your own life better. And like we said before, you can't drag someone with you, you can't change someone. So a lot of times that means just making the change for yourself. And so be strong and be able to do that. And for those who maybe were in that position and have taken those steps, my advice would be to be gentle with yourself, because it's an emotional thing and it's hard and it can feel scary and overwhelming and all of these things all at the same time. And it's hard to deal with, but you are so much better off afterwards. And, you're so strong for even getting to this point. So if that's where you're at in life, just be gentle, be easy with yourself, and the rest will come.
Yes, that is so good. Just know that it takes time, especially if you've been going through stuff for many years. Just don't think it's going to be overnight. This is something when I help my clients with their health, like you've gone through this for many years. Just be patient. That it's going to take time to get back to healing,
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
You can't expect to just turn off how you felt overnight just because you realize it's toxic, because
Yes.
toxic relationships aren't toxic 24/7. There were good times. You're not making up the good times. You're not making up those feelings. They existed and they can still hurt in the same way as a normal breakup. So
yeah. And sometimes you have triggers, the conflicts. Yeah.
So
and it's having those tools, having that thing, the first step, of course, is knowing it's toxic. That's the first step. But that's not the end of it. You keep going and keep going through steps.
That is absolutely step. Take those baby steps, because every little step is worth it.
That's right. Wow. Okay, so Nenia, how can people connect with you? Can you share with us is there any projects you're working on, what you're doing, all those stuff?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So I have
Oops.
written, so absolutely. So I have written a young adult novel, a fiction novel, that really aims to shine a light on dating violence and toxic relationships in that high school. So you can that on Amazon and anywhere else where books are sold online. That's called He Loves Me Not by Nenia Corcoran. And you can find me and connect with me on my website, which is neniacorcoran.com, NeniaCorcoran.com. And I am also at Nenia Corcoran on Instagram. So feel free to connect with me there and for support and anything.
Okay, awesome. So those of you watching it on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, I will have it on the description page. Of all these have links. And if it's on podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, it will be on the show notes area. So you guys can connect with her. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming today. And so I'm going to end this episode with my favorite quote from Maya Angelou that says, when you know better, you do better. All right, guys. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.